Welcome to Fast Facts. I'm Robin Trimmingham of the Olderhood Group, and my co-host today is Martha Harris Myron, Olderhood's international financial consultant. Today's topic is debt, the good, the bad, and the necessary.
Thank you, Robin, and hello, everyone. Yes, that's exactly true. In our last Fast Facts, we simply talked about debt. Today, now, we're going to actually divide that debt up into debt you need to have because it's necessary, and debt that has and may have adverse effects. So debt, as we have said, has two sides. We are borrowers, and guess what? We are also lenders of debt. We have to manage them carefully because they both have the potential to be very good or conversely, very bad. Good debt is necessary and it's unavoidable, and it's a responsible debt. And we need it because it's difficult to save enough cash for very large purchases. It's also very good with increasing your personal credit score, and it becomes almost savings because you're purchasing assets that are going to appreciate in value. The other thing that's interesting is that investments can be debt as well. Surprise, you're the lender there. If you invest in high credit rated sovereign debt bonds such as US Treasuries or UK gilts, you're lending them money and they must pay you back with interest. This is considered a relatively safe investment. You can also lend money to a successful business, perhaps someone you know, and at some point they may convert that to equity so you become a shareholder. Bad debt is another story altogether. We all talk about credit cards. I won't go into everything about that. Another debt that can really get you into trouble, and people don't realize it as beginning investors, is when you open a brokerage account and you actually end up with a margin debt account as well. We're going to elaborate on many of these in further Fast Facts broadcasting. If you're leasing a car or some other type of equipment, you've got to be careful with the contract. There are zingers in there. And borrowing from personal friends and relatives, you actually have to pay them back. And if you're the lender to them, you may be the last to be paid because, quote, you're a relative, you might be more forgiving. Another problem that happens as well is buying something that's really too expensive without a contingency plan in place. For instance, a house that you're really stretched to the limit to make those payments.
Bad debt is something that everybody can relate to, but a lot of us really take it for granted when they just say, oh, well, I want it, I need it, I'll just throw it on the credit card and I'll deal with it later. Well, that's okay, maybe for one small treat, but if you make that your life policy, pretty soon that pair of shoes that you bought 2 years ago still isn't paid for.
That's exactly correct. And of course, what's the value of the shoes then? This is why I talk an awful lot about buying appreciating assets on debt. In reality, while we don't like to be negative, bad debt can be devastating. For instance, people tend to, and believe it or not, will borrow against their home equity line and invest in the stock market. Guess what happens if those shares go down? Sometimes homes are used as collateral to start a business. Tremendous caution needs to be taken there. What happens if the business fails? Some other people will tend to borrow against their pension to start a business. All of these things have to be treated with caution. Now, if you're on the lending side, where you actually decided to buy some junk bonds because they're paying 15% interest, if they default, the company or the country defaults, you're in trouble. So that's debt that also can be very devastating. And of course, family and friends who don't pay you back, unfortunately, that's far more common than we realize. So the bottom line is, know what you are going to do and who you are either borrowing from or lending to. Make sure there's a contract that spells everything out and manage that debt carefully.
Great advice as always, Martha. You've been watching Olderhood Fast Facts. If you have a comment or a question about the series, you can reach out to us at Bill, that's BILL, at olderhood.com.